I'm joined now by Seamus Bruner. He's with the Government Accountability Institute, co-authored a book with John Solomon as well, Fallout, Nuclear Bribes, Russian Spies, and the Washington Lies that enriched the Clinton and Biden dynasties. Seamus, thanks for coming on the program.
It's great to be with you, Stu.
Thanks. And I got to say, legitimately, thank you. I don't think without you and Peter Schweizer and John Solomon that we would have any idea of the scope of what the Bidens have been doing over the past several decades. It was probably interesting to see some of this come up in the debate last night. I'm sure as you've worked through all of this, to see it on the debate stage is pretty interesting. It's a difficult thing, though, I think, to kind of communicate to people who are coming from ground zero with no knowledge about what has gone on. Can you kind of give us a 101 sort of version of what has gone on with Joe Biden, his family, and China?
Yeah, it's a simple story. It's old as time. It's peddling influence. It's foreign influence. I mean, George Washington warned us about foreign influence, and selling access is a very common story in Washington, D.C. So what these new emails and the new documents that have come from multiple business partners of the son of the vice president, Hunter Biden, show that this is not about Hunter Biden. This is really about Joe Biden and what they could deliver to their foreign business partners. That is, the Biden family could deliver to their foreign business partners.
So there are several different sources of this information. You guys have done work over many, many years on this to kind of build the foundation of it. And then we've had several troves of emails that have come out kind of at the same time. The Hunter Biden laptop, I think because of the backstory, has had the most attention. But you guys don't. You guys got these access to these emails from other sources. Can you explain where they came from?
Sure. So the New York Post was the first one with the Hunter Biden laptop, and we didn't really know anything about that. But almost around the same time, I guess, one of Hunter Biden's former business associates, a man named Bevan Cooney, who is now in prison, got a hold of us through a fellow investigative journalist, Matthew Tiermond, and said, I would love you guys to go through my emails. I feel like I was a fall guy. I was a scapegoat for Hunter Biden and Devon Archer. And so please go through my emails and see if you can report any of the shady activities that was going on. So we had Bevan Cooney's emails. Now, the newest person to come forward is a man named Tony Bobulinski, and he was even closer to the Biden orbit. Bevan Cooney was sort of just on the periphery. He was very close with Devon Archer, who was basically Hunter Biden's right-hand man in a lot of these dealings. But Tony Bobulinski is the new guy who has come forward. He's provided access to us and others, and he really wants to get his text messages and emails out. He was right there in the thick of it. And so these are now two business partners of Hunter Biden who have flipped. We've been in communication with others who would like to flip, for lack of a better term. And I think there's going to be a lot more documents that come out. Now, of course, everybody wishes that this had happened a long time ago. Obviously, people have been voting and whatnot, so this information has been secret right up until now. We're going through it just as fast as we can, and we're putting out stories. We got a story in Breitbart today about more details on that takeover of the Michigan-based auto manufacturer by the Chinese military contractor AVIC.
Do you have a sense, before we get into kind of the details of these, do you have a sense as to what the motivation is? I think a lot of people see this, it's a couple of weeks before the election, and people are thinking it's just some sort of political attack. But again, like if it was a political attack, it would have been much better to come out earlier so people would have time to go through this before voting even started. What's the motivation of these two guys to try to shine light on the Biden operation?
Well, I think the motivation, I mean, for Bevan Cooney, it's clearly patriotism. There's no incentive for Bevan Cooney to release his private inbox. I mean, there are some very personal things going on in here. And it's, at times you're like, oh, I wish I weren't reading over this stuff. But so I mean, there's no reason to give his personal inbox other than he thought that justice has not been done. And I guess, political type investigative journalists like ourselves, like you and Glenn Beck and the folks at the Blaze, like we've been steeped in all of this politics for the past year, 18 months, maybe 2 years. But I think it's just now getting onto people's radars. Some people who don't like to stay in the politics, it's just now getting on their radars, and they're thinking to themselves, man, I don't know that I could live with myself if I am not fully transparent with what I knew the Bidens were up to.
Yeah, and when you say fully transparent, that's an important part of this. This is not him sending you over some printed emails he thinks will be key to this investigation. He literally, like, basically gave you guys the password to his account so you could go through and look through every single email that came in over a multi-year period.
Exactly, exactly. It's really stunning. I've never been, we've never really been provided with access like this to someone's account. They're high-fiving after each deal, like, yeah, way to go. The Chinese just bought out an American manufacturer. This is great. Let's use this as a model for future successful deals. It's really the stuff that you assume goes on in the background, but you never really get, a peek at. And so Bevan Cooney provided us that peek, and so did Tony Bobulinski. Now, Tony Bobulinski's are a little different. It's not, the documents are authentic, you can authenticate them. The text messages are a lot of screenshots and snapshots. So each batch, if you will, the New York Post, Giuliani, Hunter laptop batch, they all have different things of value. That batch, the thing it has of value is it was purportedly Hunter Biden's own laptop. So everything there is relevant to the Biden family. If you come to Bevan, but the thing that's questionable is where did it come from? How did it get there? All of those questions. The good thing about the Bevan Cooney material is we know 100% it could not have been spoofed. It couldn't have been hacked. It couldn't have been planted. I mean, Gmail, Google would have to be in on it, and we certainly know that that's not the case.
No, definitely not. So you mentioned, let's go through one of these deals, if you will. Look, Michigan's a very important state in this election. People and voters in Michigan are probably be very interested to know if one of these candidates is involved in closing down factories in their state. Can you tell me about this Michigan situation?
Sure. The company was called Henniges Automotive. It's a very old American company. I want to say 50 or even maybe more years old, operating in Michigan, and it makes these seals that are usually for car parts to seal off the windows. So in the doors, so your car is sealed. But that technology and that materials is actually on the export control list because it can be used in fighter jets, for example. And so this is a controlled technology. It has what's called dual uses, dual civilian and military uses. And that means it's a protected technology. We shouldn't be selling it off to our adversary. And there's absolutely no question that this deal would not have gone through. By the way, this is another CFIUS beauty, kind of like the Uranium One deal, where it was approved by the Obama-Biden administration. John Kerry, the Secretary of State, plays a leading role. And what these emails and these documents that we've gotten have shown is they really disguised the ownership. Hunter Biden and his Chinese business partners, they partnered together. Hunter Biden's Bohai Harvest, BHR, partnered with the Chinese AVIC, the Aviation Industry of China Corporation, and it's basically an extension of the People's Liberation Army. It's the Chinese military, basically, that Hunter Biden partnered with. If Hunter Biden was not a partner with that, if his firm was not a partner with that, there's very little doubt this would not have gone through because you don't sell dual-use technologies to the Chinese military. There's more to that, and Secretary Kerry comes in and his daughter comes in, and it's just like another crooked CFIUS deal from the Obama-Biden administration that allowed one of our adversaries to capture a very sensitive technology.
Yeah, and is this the motivation here? Is it personal enrichment? Is it just a kind of a constant desire to grow the power of this family? How do you put that in perspective?
Well, money was the motivation, as it is for many people, at least for Hunter Biden's business partners. When you go through the emails, they use this one term a lot, honey. They say we need to get some more honey, or this will be a nice honey trap. We need to put some honey into Hunter Biden's pockets. We need to leverage Hunter Biden more so that we can get more honey. So it's all about money, and they're kind of hyping, at least for the business partners, for the Biden family. It's probably a lot more than that, because they live very well and have been for a long time. You'd think they could kind of rest on the millions they've made, but no, they keep making deals even after Joe Biden leaves office.
You guys have done so much great work on getting this, not only from even Democrats, but Republicans across the aisle. Sinking your teeth into this has been really important, and people need to know about the work you guys have done at the Government Accountability Institute. Can you kind of give us a sense, though, after looking at so many figures over such a long period of time, where do the Bidens stack up? Are they a run-of-the-mill sort of corrupt organization or family, or do they stand out in a big way?
Well, it's a really good question, Stu. I would say Clinton Cash. That book was my favorite to work on. The sums in that book were so huge. I don't know that anybody could top the Clintons, but the Bidens have certainly tried.
Yeah.
And it's more family members. And I mean, the Clintons never got $1.5 billion private equity deal bankrolled by the Bank of China, state-owned bank, aka the Chinese government. So there's some really shocking things that I don't even think the Clintons were brazen enough to do. But I would put them right up there in the Hall of Fame alongside Hillary and Bill Clinton.
And do we have any idea if Joe Biden actually received any of these funds? Do we just have indications of that, or do we know that it went beyond Hunter Biden? Because one of the things I get a lot of pushback on this story is, look, we know Hunter Biden was shady. We know Hunter Biden was doing all sorts of crazy things. Why should that affect my vote on Joe Biden?
It's another great question. So until this past week, there had not been any evidence that Joe Biden was personally profiting. Now, of course, the Biden family has vacation homes and beach houses in the multi-millions of dollars. Hunter Biden's got a mansion. Joe Biden's got a massive mansion. They live like, very, very well-off people, not like public servants. But there had not been any direct evidence that Joe Biden had personally profited. And last night at the debate, he says that, and he says, "Look at my tax returns. I've put out 22 years of tax returns." Well, everybody knows that the point of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and James Biden and Frank Biden making all the deals is Joe Biden's fingerprints don't have to be on anything. And so the evidence that is now coming out from Tony Bobolinsky, where he's talking about the big guy, and the president brought this up last night, is there is increasingly evidence that Joe Biden, perhaps through a shell corporation, or maybe it was held by Hunter Biden, was involved in these deals. I mean, there's no other. You would never, if you were Joe Biden, you would never put it on your tax return. It's kind of like how he says he never met with the Ukrainian Burisma executive. They say it wasn't on the official schedule, nor would it be.
Right.
These guys are experts. He's been in politics for 50 years. He knows what a Senate disclosure report looks like. He knows what assets and liabilities he has to list. So, I mean, the Clintons had a foundation. It appears that Joe Biden had his family.
It's like when they always say, there's no such thing as voter fraud because we haven't caught any of it. Well, it's like that's the whole point of fraud is to not get caught. You're not going to catch it. Seamus Bruner of the Government Accountability Institute. Be sure to pick up his book with John Solomon. It's Fallout, Nuclear Bribes, Russian Spies, and the Washington Lies that enriched Clinton and the Clinton and Biden dynasties. Seamus, thanks so much for going through this, and thanks for all the work you guys do. Sincerely, it really needs to be done, and you guys are the only people. There's apparently no journalists who want to do this stuff, so thank God you guys are there to do it.
Well, same to you, Stu. You're great, and Glenn's great, and the Blaze is just an amazing network. So thank you.
Thank you, Seamus. All right, back in a second.